My name is Marcus, and I've lived on the streets of Philadelphia for longer than I can remember. The city feels different when it rains. The asphalt reflects every neon sign, every flashing siren, every hurried passerby. That night, I was curled up on the cold steps of an old diner, trying to keep warm under a tattered blanket that smelled of smoke and wet fabric. The rain dripped from my hood, soaking through the layers I barely had. I was used to the cold, the hunger, the endless nights with nothing but the sound of the city for company. But that night, something was different. I noticed the flashing lights first, red and blue reflecting on puddles, bouncing off the windows of the empty shops. At first, I thought it was just another accident or maybe someone getting arrested. But as I squinted through the curtain of rain, I saw the worried faces, the frantic gestures, the way a woman was crying and shouting over and over. Her voice carried through the wet streets, cutting through the rhythm of the city. Something in me recognized that kind of fear, the kind that makes your chest ache and your stomach twist. Curiosity got the better of me. I moved closer, careful to stay in the shadows, listening. Police officers were running back and forth, talking into radios, scanning the streets. I heard bits and pieces. Missing girl, 10 years old, been gone for 3 days, no solid leads, neighborhood residents scared, witnesses uncooperative. My heart started beating faster. I had seen her before. I remembered the little girl laughing near the corner of 7th Street and Vine, her bright red jacket standing out against the gray buildings, the small toy she clutched in her tiny hands. I had noticed her the day she wandered too close to the abandoned warehouse where I sometimes sleep. I didn't know her name, and I never spoke to her, but that image was burned into my mind. Most people pass by the homeless and invisible like we're ghosts. They don't see us. But sometimes, we see everything. I knew what the police were missing, and I felt an odd mix of fear and responsibility. I wanted to leave, to disappear back into the darkness where I belonged, but something in me refused. I couldn't just watch this unfold without saying something. I edged closer to one of the officers, a young woman with sharp eyes and a tired expression. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I could see the frustration in her movements, the frustration of not knowing where a child is, not knowing if she is safe, not knowing if they were too late. I swallowed the lump in my throat and tried to steady my voice. "I think I know where she was," I whispered. She turned to me, her eyes narrowing, disbelief written all over her face. Who are you?" she asked. I hesitated. The words felt heavy in my mouth. I've seen her. A few days ago, near the old warehouse. She stared at me like I was insane. A homeless kid, shivering, wet, barely more than a shadow of a person, claiming to know something crucial. I could see the doubt in her eyes, the hesitation, the internal battle between hope and skepticism. Then, I noticed something subtle, a flicker of hope. The kind you only see in someone who's desperate, someone who has exhausted every lead and is clinging to any chance, no matter how small. That hope made me speak louder, more certain, despite the fear curling in my stomach. I described what I had seen, the red jacket, the laughter, the toy, the way she had looked around, unaware of danger but cautious in her own innocent way. I even remembered small details, the sound of a rusty gate creaking, the smell of wet concrete mixed with the faint scent of flowers from a nearby abandoned garden. The detective didn't respond immediately. She just looked at me, scanning my face, searching for signs of lies, deceit, or trickery. But I could see the wheels turning in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to believe that someone like me could hold the missing pieces of this puzzle. Rain pounded on the roof of the diner, echoing the tension in my chest. The streets were mostly empty now, the usual late-night wanderers gone, leaving the wet pavement and the occasional flickering street lamp as witnesses. I realized, in that moment, that my life on the streets had prepared me for this. I had eyes that noticed what others overlooked, ears that heard what others ignored, and a memory sharp enough to remember details most people would discard. And for the first time, it felt like those skills could matter, like they could make a difference. The detective finally nodded, a small, cautious acknowledgement. She gestured for me to follow her. My heart pounded in my chest, equal parts fear and adrenaline. I had never been inside a police investigation before, never been treated as a source of hope rather than an invisible outcast. And yet, as we moved through the rain-slicked streets together, I knew one thing: whatever happened next would change everything. I never liked telling people things about myself. Growing up on the streets of Philadelphia, you learn quickly that secrets are safer than words. But that night, standing under the dim glow of a flickering streetlight with Detective Harris leading me toward the abandoned warehouse, I knew I couldn't keep it in any longer. My hands were cold, my stomach tight with fear, and every sound of dripping water or distant siren made my pulse jump. I had seen her before, the missing girl, and I was the only one who could guide them to her. The detective glanced at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You said you saw her near the warehouse?" she asked. I nodded, biting my lip. I could feel the rain soaking through my jacket, but I hardly noticed. I had memorized every detail: the bright red jacket, the worn shoes, the little toy she carried, the way her eyes darted nervously toward the empty streets. Most people wouldn't think twice about a girl wandering near a crumbling building, but I did. I had watched from a distance, making sure she didn't get too close to the dangerous areas where I sometimes slept. That day, I noticed a shadow following her. I had been too afraid to intervene then, too aware of my own vulnerability. But now, I had a chance to fix it. As we walked through the wet alleys, I told her everything I remembered. "She looked scared but curious," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "She kept looking over her shoulder, like someone was watching her. And then, she went toward the back of the warehouse. That's where she stayed." I hesitated, glancing at Detective Harris. She didn't interrupt me. She just listened, scribbling notes, her face calm but her eyes sharp. I wondered if she believed me. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. It didn't matter. I had to tell her, whether she trusted me or not. The streets felt different as we moved closer to the warehouse. Puddles reflected the neon lights from the corner store, making the rain shimmer like it was alive. I remember that day vividly, the smell of wet concrete mixed with the faint scent of flowers from an abandoned garden nearby, the creak of the rusted gate, the distant bark of a dog that probably hadn't seen anyone in weeks. I told her every detail, even the ones that seemed insignificant. Every little thing mattered. Detective Harris paused, looking at me with a strange mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked softly. I shrugged, my teeth chattering slightly. "Because someone has to. I've seen things most people don't see. I've lived on these streets for years. I notice everything: the people who pass by, the shadows, the sounds. I didn't know her name, but I knew she was in danger." I swallowed hard, feeling my heart pound. I don't want her to disappear the way so many others do. For a moment, silence hung between us, broken only by the rhythm of our footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the building's edge. Then she nodded, a small but determined gesture. "All right. Let me." Her voice carried a weight I had never heard from anyone before. It wasn't just authority, it was trust, and for someone like me, that was rare. Very rare. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "There's something else," I admitted, almost whispering. "I saw someone else that day. A man. I don't know why he was there, but he was watching her. He didn't notice me, but he was following her, in a way. I didn't know what to do at the time. I was scared. I didn't want anyone hurt, but I couldn't stop him." Detective Harris slowed her pace, her eyes narrowing in thought. "Do you remember what he looked like?" she asked. I nodded. Tall, thin, dark clothes. He had a hat that covered his face. I didn't see much, but I remember his shadow. And the way he moved, quiet, careful, like he didn't want to be seen. I think he was waiting for something. Or someone. The rain intensified, soaking us both, but I barely noticed. My mind was consumed with the image of the girl, huddled somewhere, scared and alone, depending on me to remember. I felt a strange mixture of fear and responsibility, a heavy weight, but one I couldn't ignore. "I know it sounds crazy," I said, almost apologetically. "I'm just a kid who lives on the streets. You probably don't believe me." Detective Harris didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she placed a hand on my shoulder. "I don't care who you are," she said. "Right now, what matters is that you know something no one else does. And that's going to help us find her." Her words gave me a flicker of hope I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I realized that maybe being invisible wasn't always a weakness. Maybe, just maybe, it could be a strength. I nodded, gripping my jacket tighter, and together, we moved toward the warehouse. Every step felt heavier, but also more certain. I had a secret, yes, but it was one that could save a life. And for the first time, I understood just how powerful that could be. The closer we got to the warehouse, the heavier the air felt. Rain was still falling in relentless sheets, turning the streets into reflective rivers of neon light. I could feel every drop soaking through my jacket, sticking to my skin, chilling me to the bone, but adrenaline kept me moving. Detective Harris stayed close, her eyes sharp, scanning every corner, every shadow. I could hear her breathing, steady but tense, and I realized that she, like me, was on edge, aware that the next few moments could change everything. The alleyways twisted like a maze, full of puddles and broken glass, discarded newspapers floating in the water, some soaked to the point of turning into pulp beneath our feet. I led her through a path I had memorized, every crack in the pavement, every flickering street lamp, every smell, the wet concrete mixed with rust and decay from the old buildings. My heart was pounding so loudly I feared it might give away our presence to whoever was hiding inside. We paused for a moment behind a rusted dumpster. I could see the warehouse ahead, dark and foreboding, its broken windows staring at us like blind eyes. "She's inside," I whispered. The detective nodded without a word, signaling me to continue. Every instinct screamed caution. I knew the place, I had slept nearby, hidden in the shadows, and I knew that someone could be watching. As we approached the entrance, the sound of dripping water echoed inside, mingling with distant creaks from the old floorboards. My stomach twisted. I could feel the tension building with every step. This wasn't just about finding a child anymore, it was about navigating the unknown, about trusting my memory and my instincts in a place where danger hid behind every corner. I gestured toward the side door. "This way," I said quietly. Detective Harris followed, flashlight cutting through the darkness. The beam bounced off walls, revealing graffiti, cobwebs, and the remnants of broken furniture. I could smell the dampness, the mold, and something faintly metallic, like old blood or rusted pipes. Every sense was heightened. I could hear the soft scuff of shoes on the floor above us, and my pulse quickened. Someone else was here. We moved carefully, my hand trembling slightly as I led her through narrow corridors. I whispered details, trying to keep the detective informed. "There's a back room, small window, that's where I saw her last. Be careful, there might be someone else with her. I don't know who." Her eyes met mine briefly, and I saw the trust there, the kind that makes you feel a little less invisible, even when you're soaked and shivering. Suddenly, we heard a noise above, a floorboard creak, heavy and deliberate. My body froze, and Detective Harris instinctively raised her weapon, flashlight shaking slightly in her free hand. I could see the tension in her face, the tight set of her jaw, the way her eyes darted around, scanning for movement. I whispered, "It's him. The man I saw before. He's still here." We crept forward, every step careful, every breath measured. The warehouse smelled of damp wood and oil, and the faintest trace of fear seemed to linger in the air, as if the building itself remembered the horrors that had passed through it. I remembered that day vividly, the girl, unaware of danger, walking toward a shadow that had been following her. And now, I had to relive it, guide someone else through it, and hope we weren't too late. We reached the back of the warehouse, near the small room I had seen her in. The door was partially ajar. My hand shook as I pushed it open, revealing the dimly lit interior. The girl wasn't there, but her backpack was, lying on the floor, wet from the leaking roof. I swallowed hard. This was it, the moment of truth. Detective Harris signaled me to stay back while she stepped forward, calling softly, "It's okay, we're here to help." A shadow moved, and I realized the man was still inside, crouched near a crate, watching. I froze, trying to remember every detail I had observed before. The detective's voice was steady, commanding, and I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with fear. My knowledge of the streets, of hidden corners and silent movements, was about to become the difference between life and tragedy. Then, a faint sound, a giggle, soft and hesitant, cut through the tension. My heart leapt. She was alive. The girl was alive. I pointed toward the sound, whispering urgently. "There. Behind the crate." Detective Harris nodded, moving with precision, ready to confront whoever had taken her. My legs trembled, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline and the weight of responsibility. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. For the first time, being invisible, being a homeless teen, didn't matter. My eyes had seen what others missed. My memory had noticed what others ignored. And right now, those things could save a life. As the detective prepared to step closer, I held my breath, knowing that the chase had only just begun, and the outcome depended on every decision, every step, every heartbeat in the dark warehouse. The warehouse was silent, except for the soft patter of rain leaking through holes in the roof and the distant hum of the city outside. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the empty space. Detective Harris was tense, her flashlight scanning every shadow, every corner, every crack in the walls. I stayed just behind her, my own eyes darting, remembering every detail of the building, the rusted beams, the broken furniture, the faint outline of where the girl had crouched days ago. Then, from the darkness near a stack of crates, a figure emerged. I froze, unsure if it was the man I had seen following the girl or someone else entirely. He was older, disheveled, with clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. His eyes widened when he saw us, and for a moment, he looked like he might run. But then, he froze completely, and I realized something. He was waiting for me. You know him?" Detective Harris asked, her voice firm but cautious. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes. That's him. He saw her too, the day she disappeared. He knows more than anyone else." The man's gaze shifted between us, flickering with fear and recognition. He trembled slightly, like a cornered animal. I saw it," he stammered. "I shouldn't. I didn't mean to. I was just..." His voice trailed off, and I could feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. I stepped forward slowly, keeping my hands visible. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you. But you need to tell us what happened. We can't find her without your help." The man hesitated, glancing at the detective and then back at me. I was scared, he admitted finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I saw her, the little girl, she wandered in here, and I didn't know what to do. I was hiding from the cops myself. I've been on the run for months." His eyes were haunted, and I could see the desperation in every line of his face. Detective Harris took a careful step forward, her voice calm but authoritative. "We're not here to punish you right now. We need to find her. Can you help us?" The man's hands shook as he nodded slowly. Yes, I can. But you have to trust me. I can show you where she is, but you can't make a mistake. You have to be careful. He's still here." I swallowed hard, my stomach knotting. I didn't fully understand who he meant by he, but I could feel the danger radiating from the shadowy corners of the warehouse. Every instinct I had developed living on the streets screamed at me to be cautious, but I also knew that this man held the key to finding the girl alive. We moved deeper into the warehouse, the man leading us through narrow corridors, past broken crates and puddles of water that reflected our flashlights. The smell of damp wood and rust grew stronger, mixed with something faintly sweet, like flowers left behind in the abandoned space. My heart was racing, but I tried to focus on the details, just as I always did, every sound, every movement, every flicker of shadow. "Here," the man whispered, stopping at a partially hidden door. He glanced at me nervously. "She's inside. I didn't hurt her. I couldn't let anyone find her before you came. I was scared." Detective Harris nodded, her eyes never leaving the door. She motioned for me to stay back as she slowly pushed it open. Inside, the room was dimly lit, but I could see her. The little girl was sitting on the floor, hugging her backpack, her eyes wide with fear. The man stood slightly back, hands raised, clearly nervous about the police presence. I could see the relief wash over her tiny face when she spotted me, though she didn't know my name. It was a look that said, "Someone saw me. Someone noticed." Detective Harris crouched down, speaking softly to calm the girl. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. You're not alone." I stayed at the doorway, watching, feeling a strange mix of pride and anxiety. The man beside me shifted uneasily, and I realized that he had been carrying a heavy burden, one that was finally lifting now that the truth was out. For the first time in that long, cold night, I felt a sense of connection. The streets had made me invisible, and yet here I was, standing at the center of something that mattered, something real. The man, the detective, the girl, they all looked to me in some way, relying on what I had seen, what I had remembered. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and powerful all at once. As the detective spoke quietly to the girl, I could hear the man murmuring an explanation, confessing what he had witnessed, what he had done, and what he had been too scared to reveal. Each word he spoke added pieces to the puzzle, painting a picture of the last few days, of how the girl had been hidden, and why she had not been found earlier. I could feel the tension slowly easing, replaced by the fragile hope that she would finally be safe. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. The streets had taught me more than survival, they had taught me observation, awareness, patience. Every second of noticing things others overlooked had led us here. And though the night was far from over, I knew that the most dangerous part of this story was behind us, and the unexpected witness had given us the one thing that mattered most, the truth. The room was dim, lit only by a faint beam of light filtering through the cracked windows, dust particles floating like tiny stars in the air. My heart was hammering, every beat loud in my chest, each one a reminder that we were finally on the verge of the truth. The girl sat huddled in the corner, clutching her backpack as if it could shield her from the world. Her wide eyes flicked nervously toward the man who had hidden her and then toward Detective Harris, who was crouched in front of her, speaking softly, trying to calm the trembling child. I felt an ache in my chest, a mixture of fear, relief, and anticipation. All the nights spent on the streets, all the moments I had noticed things others ignored, led to this. I had seen her days before she disappeared, her laughter echoing through an empty street, her bright red jacket marking her like a beacon. And now, seeing her alive and frightened, I realized the weight of what I had carried silently for so long, the knowledge that could save her. The man, standing slightly back, seemed unsure of what to do. His eyes darted between the girl, Detective Harris, and me, a silent question in his gaze. I took a cautious step forward. "It's okay," I whispered. "She's safe now. You're safe too." He nodded slowly, relief washing over his tense features, though guilt still lingered in his eyes. I could see he had been trapped by fear, just like I had seen her trapped in the warehouse, unnoticed by anyone who could help. Detective Harris extended her hand gently toward the girl. "It's okay to come to me," she said softly. The little girl hesitated for a moment, then slowly rose, clutching her backpack tighter, and took the detective's hand. I stepped back, giving her space, my own hands trembling slightly. I could see her trembling body, hear the quick, uneven rhythm of her breathing. She looked at me briefly, recognition flickering in her eyes, a silent thank you that I didn't need to hear out loud. The room smelled of damp wood, mold, and a faint metallic tang that made my stomach twist. It was oppressive, suffocating in a way, yet the presence of the girl and the detective created a fragile warmth, a fragile hope, that began to push back the fear. I felt a strange sense of calm, as if the worst of the night's danger had passed. Yet the tension remained, a reminder that every step until now had been a knife edge between safety and tragedy. The man finally spoke, his voice low and shaky. "I didn't hurt her. I swear I didn't. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared of being caught myself. I thought if I hit her, maybe no one would notice, maybe she'd be safe, but I couldn't stay quiet forever." His words tumbled out in a rush, each one carrying the weight of months spent hiding, fearing the law, fearing exposure. I could see the truth in his eyes, the fear and regret, and I understood why he had remained silent. Fear can make people do strange things, even protectiveness twisted by desperation. Detective Harris listened carefully, her eyes never leaving the girl. She spoke again softly, reassuring her, her tone calm and measured. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you. You're going home." The girl's grip on her backpack loosened slightly, and she let out a small, trembling sigh. Relief flooded the room, mingling with the lingering tension, a delicate balance of fear fading into hope. I watched as the girl slowly approached the man. Her small voice broke the silence. Why did you hide me?" The man's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't know what else to do. I thought, maybe I could protect you until someone came. But I didn't know how to bring you back safely." The girl didn't respond at first, her wide eyes studying him, searching for truth. Then, slowly, she nodded, a fragile understanding forming between them. I felt a lump in my throat as I realized the full weight of the night. The girl was alive, the truth had been revealed, and fear had finally been replaced by understanding. All the danger, all the shadows, all the uncertainty that had filled these streets for days had led to this fragile moment of clarity. The detective's calm authority, the man's reluctant courage, and my own silent observations had intersected to bring her back from the brink of something unthinkable. The sound of the rain outside began to fade into the background as the girl clutched the detective's hand and slowly stood taller. Her eyes met mine again, and I saw gratitude, relief, and the faintest hint of trust. It was fleeting, delicate, but enough to anchor me in the moment. The revelation wasn't just about finding her, it was about understanding the truth of fear, of survival, and of the fragile human connections that could emerge even in the darkest places. I stepped back, letting them take the space between the past and the future. The girl, alive and trembling, was proof that even when the world overlooks the smallest details, even when danger hides in shadows, the truth can be seen and acted upon. And in that quiet, tense warehouse, I understood for the first time in a long time that being invisible had its purpose. It had led to this revelation, and it had saved a life. The city felt different the next morning. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets wet and reflective, and the first pale light of dawn painted the buildings with a muted glow. I walked through the alleys, my jacket still damp from the night, trying to process everything that had happened. The girl was safe. The man who had hidden her had confessed and faced the authorities. Detective Harris had promised that she would ensure he was treated fairly, but the relief in my chest was tinged with unease. Life on the streets doesn't reward heroes, and I was about to discover just how complicated recognition could be. News of the girl's return spread quickly. I overheard people talking on street corners, in diners, in passing cars. A homeless teen helped find her, someone whispered. I kept walking, head down, pretending not to hear, but the words settled in my mind like stones. Some people doubted me, assumed I was seeking attention, assumed a street kid couldn't possibly know the truth about something so serious. Others were silent, staring, curious, maybe even a little afraid of someone who had just done what no one else could. I didn't care about the disbelief. All I cared about was knowing that she was alive. Detective Harris had left me with a quiet nod the night before, a small acknowledgement that we had done something important together. But the streets don't forgive, and I knew I couldn't stay expecting anyone else to see me differently. I was still a shadow, still someone people overlooked, but for the first time in years, I felt like that shadow had weight, that it mattered. I found myself near the alley where I had first seen her days ago, staring at the warehouse from a distance. The memory of the little red jacket, her small hands clutching a toy, and the fear in her eyes was vivid. I thought about how close we had been to disaster, how quickly things could have gone wrong if I hadn't remembered every detail, every movement, every sound. That realization was heavy. It was frightening. But it was also oddly empowering. I had a purpose now, even if the world didn't recognize it. People began to notice me differently. Some smiled, some nodded, some simply glanced and then looked away. But there was a shift in the air, a subtle acknowledgement that maybe I wasn't entirely invisible anymore. I saw the girl's mother once, walking toward the warehouse with the detective. She hugged her daughter tightly, sobbing, relief breaking through every line on her face. I stayed hidden, watching from the shadows, and for the first time, I didn't mind being unseen. Seeing her safe, knowing that I had played a role in her return, was enough. Yet, the fallout wasn't just external. I felt it in my own chest, in the quiet hours of the night when the city's noises softened and I could hear my own thoughts. Pride mixed with fear, hope mixed with doubt. People might never fully understand what had happened, and they might never appreciate that it was a homeless teen who had noticed the truth. But I understood. That knowledge was mine alone, a secret power shaped by years of observation, survival, and silent patience. Detective Harris visited me briefly, bringing a small bag of food and a warm coat. She didn't say much, just a few words of thanks and a reminder that my eyes and memory had saved a life. I nodded, not needing more. The gesture itself spoke volumes. For someone like me, living unnoticed, such acknowledgement was rare, fragile, and meaningful. I realized then that the world had cracks where light could seep through, even in the darkest alleys. The man who had hidden the girl faced his consequences, but he also received some measure of understanding from the authorities because of his fear and honesty. I watched from a distance, noting how humans are complicated, how intentions and actions don't always align, and how fragile the line between good and bad can be. That complexity mirrored my own life, a life where survival required vigilance, instinct, and sometimes, solitude. By the evening, the streets returned to their usual rhythm, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional shout, the smell of food from corner vendors mixing with wet asphalt. I walked slowly, my steps deliberate, thinking about the ripple effect of the night's events. One child was safe. One truth had been revealed. And one homeless teen, who had lived in shadows for years, realized that even invisible lives can shape the world in ways most people never see. As the city lights flickered on, I paused and looked at the horizon. The fallout of that night would linger, not just in the streets, but in me. It had changed something fundamental. I had a voice, even if it was quiet. I had a purpose, even if unnoticed, and I had seen the difference one person, even one unseen, could make in a world that often looked the other way. The morning sun crept over the rooftops of Philadelphia, painting the wet streets with a soft golden light. The city felt alive, yet oddly silent in the moments that mattered most. I walked slowly toward the alley near the warehouse, the same streets where every step from the night before seemed imprinted in my mind. The girl was safe, the man had been taken into custody with a mixture of justice and understanding, and Detective Harris had filed her reports with precision. But there was something lingering, an unresolved tension that clung to the air like the last drops of rain on the pavement. I saw her then, standing a few blocks away, red jacket bright in the morning sun, her small hands gripping a stuffed toy. She looked around, searching for something, or maybe someone. Her eyes found me, and for a moment, time froze. She smiled faintly, that delicate, fragile smile that carried both relief and recognition. I couldn't approach her, not yet, but just seeing her safe, seeing her alive, filled me with a weightless sense of accomplishment and disbelief. This was the moment I had been holding my breath for, the moment I had risked everything to reach. Detective Harris appeared beside me, her presence calm yet authoritative. "You did this," she said quietly, her eyes meeting mine. "Not the system. Not luck. You." I nodded, unsure how to respond. Praise had always been foreign to me, yet in that acknowledgement, I felt a rare warmth. The streets had made me invisible for so long, and now they had forced me into the light in a way I hadn't imagined possible. The man who had hidden her remained under watch, giving statements that finally explained the last days of the girl's disappearance. Each detail he provided pieced together the puzzle that had kept the city on edge. I listened from a distance, knowing that every revelation, every confession, was a culmination of the night I had chosen to step forward. It was unbelievable to me that someone like me, a homeless teen, invisible to most, could hold the key to saving a life. I noticed a group of people gathering nearby, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Did you hear?" A homeless teen helped find her, some shook their heads in disbelief, others in awe, but I didn't linger on their reactions. I had already done what mattered. My focus shifted to the girl, who was now being led toward an ambulance for a checkup. She glanced back at me one last time, and in her gaze, I saw gratitude that didn't need words, a silent acknowledgement that I had mattered in a way she would never forget. As the day unfolded, I wandered through the city streets, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The warehouse, once a place of fear and uncertainty, now felt distant, almost unreal. I remembered the creaking floors, the faint metallic smell, the shadows that had concealed danger and secrets. Each memory replayed in my mind like a film, vivid and precise. And yet, the unbelievable part wasn't just surviving or finding her, it was realizing the weight of perception, of seeing what others overlooked, of understanding the invisible threads that could alter lives. Later, I found a quiet corner near the river, rain-slick cobblestones reflecting the afternoon light. I sat down, watching the city hum around me. The girl's safety, the detective's acknowledgement, and even the man's reluctant cooperation combined into a fragile victory that felt both enormous and delicate. The world would move on, the news would fade, and yet for me, the memory of that night would never disappear. I had witnessed the fragility of life, the power of attention, and the impact one unnoticed person could have in moments of crisis. As dusk approached, the city lights flickered on, and I realized how surreal everything had been. From being a silent observer of the girl's disappearance to becoming an essential part of her rescue, the journey had been unpredictable, tense, and emotionally exhausting. And yet, despite the disbelief, the chaos, and the fear, the result was undeniable. She was alive, the truth was revealed, and a homeless teen, me, had made the difference. I stood up, brushing off the damp from my jacket, and took one last look at the city I had navigated so many nights. The streets had tested me, had forced me to survive, and had given me the skills that ultimately saved a life. And though the world might never fully see me, I knew that this story, this unbelievable ending, was proof that even the invisible could leave a mark. There's another story on your screen right now, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. And, if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. There's so much more I want to share with you.